Hi everyone, Sherry Miller here today, talking about abundance and all that nature has to show us about how everything is about moving energy in every possible way. Nature moves energy at many layers, from very close to the ground to a few inches above the ground, to feet above the ground, to trees high up in the sky, and birds and everything else. It's all churning the energy and moving energy and flowing things. And nature uses all different shapes and textures and colors. We have long and skinny and wide and fat, and these are growing right next to each other, capturing energy differently. Different leaves are aimed in different directions. They have different opaqueness, different qualities that allow them to absorb and reflect more energy. They move and capture energy differently that way. Energy from the air, energy from the sun, the soil, their roots all intermingle. There's so much variety. There's probably 50 different variety of plants that you can see right around me, and their roots all intermingle in the soil and pull different nutrients, go deeper, go wider, have different amounts of hairs, harbor different bacteria. They all form, they all fulfill different energetic flows. And the fact that they're intermingled together means that each one can benefit from the flow that the other one is creating. So in nature, we see that the more variety that there is, and the more freedom of expression, the more different types of plants that have different ways of reproducing, like these seed heads versus the clovers versus, I don't have any at the right stage right here, but the dandelions, campanula. So they all have different ways of capturing energy through their leaves and their stems and their roots, and storing energy in their leaves and stems and roots and seeds and flesh and fruit and flower, and different ways of releasing energy back into the world through decomposition, through condensation, so pulling moisture out of the air or out of the soil and redepositing it back on top of the soil, through the seeds that they release, through the grasses and the flesh, the leaves and the flesh that are eaten by other animals and then turned into other things. So it's all a cycle of energy, and the more ways that we have to capture the energy and process it and release it, because everything is a transfer of energy. Everything in the world is just a transfer of energy. Every human, every plant, every rock, every mountain, every tree, everything is a transfer of energy from one thing into another thing. From flowing to storage, back to flowing, it's all just transfers of energy. And the more ways that we have to do that, and the more freedom that we have for it to change based on the immediate need of the moment, the more the system flourishes. And every time we get scared and try and restrict the system to the one thing that we think is right, to the one thing that we think is for us, or the one thing that we think is going to go away, then to the extent that we restrict it is the extent to which it does not flourish. The only way to truly, truly flourish is to have the freedom in the system to capture whatever energy is available right there in the moment. So freedom and flourishing absolutely go hand in hand. The extent to which something is freed is the extent to which it flourishes. The extent to which it is restricted or regulated or eliminated is the extent to which the system as a whole starts dying or is dead. If there is no freedom, no movement, there is no life in the system. Adrian Bijan, a great physicist, defines life, gives life a physics definition as movement with the freedom to change. So the more movement and freedom that you have, the more life that you have. And the more that that is restricted, the less life that you have. To the ultimate thing of death, which is no movement. No movement and no freedom to change. That is what death is. So a flourishing life like this, which is so heavenly and so beautiful and so everywhere, requires differences. It requires, if we look at this like it's a human society, it requires people of all different skills and all different sizes and all different strengths and weaknesses. Flourishing requires differences so that energy can flow from one to another. Without differences, there's no flow. There's no reason to flow. The energy, if everything was the same, stasis is death, right? Because there's no energy to flow, from a negative to a positive. I don't mean that morally. I mean that like electrically, magnetically. Negative to positive, from stored to moving, from being used in one type of way to being used in another type of way, because there became more than enough in one way, but another way needed it, so it flowed, so it was lacking here. That would be the negative, and the positive is the excess, and it flows from the excess to where there isn't enough, and then there can be excess there and it can flow the other direction, but it's the differences that cause it to flow. So we need differences. We need differences in what people want to do for careers. We need differences in what they eat. We need differences in their ideas. We need differences in their physical composition. Differences are the basis of flow. That's why there's always opposites in nature. Everything is opposites. That's why the idea of the yin and yang is so important. We always have, tall and skinny and wide and fat in the leaves that I just showed you. We always have opposites because of the energy collection and storage and distribution. We always have tall and short because you can capture energy at different levels. We have abundant and sparse because there's different niches for energy. Some things require a lot of stuff around to make it work, and some things it's just one. And even within the body, everything is in opposites. Things that turn on your system always have a corresponding thing that turns off the system. Engines and brakes. Everything has opposites because it is the difference that causes the flow of energy. So we must not only allow differences, but embrace differences, encourage differences, do everything that we can to get the differences. Because that's what makes the system flourish, and the system can only flourish when everything in it is flourishing individually, when everything in it, because to flourish individually means to flow as much energy as possible. And that is the goal of the system, is to flow the energy. So the reason that it becomes a system is not to suppress this flow of an individual, but the system exists because it is bigger than any individual, because it creates something out of all the flows together that's bigger than any individual flow. That's what makes us, that's the benefit of a system. That's what makes everything in the world a system. And everything is, it just depends on what scale you look at it. You have a system on the cell level and a system all the way up to, the entire universe. It's all systems, because systems are just combinations of the maximum flow of energy. So a system thrives on your maximum flow of energy. A system declines when it restricts the energy, or when energy within it is restricted. So there's no competition between the individual and the system when it's understood correctly. They only benefit each other. They only can benefit each other. So flourishing is all about variety and differences, so that energy can flow from one thing to another, to another, to another, and be utilized in all the different ways that everything utilizes it. Keep the energy flowing. Thank you.